exclusively on Secular Media Network. This is the Gaytheist Manifesto.
Hello and welcome to the Gaytheist Manifesto, your source for news, commentary, discussion, and debate at the intersection of the atheist movement and the LGBT rights movement. I am your host, Callie Wright, joined by my co-host, Ari Coleman.
So much pressure to come up with a catchy intro. I don't know what to say.
You failed. But it's okay.
I need to start coming up with these ahead of time.
It's okay.
I'm running out of
options.
options.
Yeah, they're at least as good as Jake's jokes for the beginning of iFriends.
Whoa.
Shots fired. So this week we're gonna have kind of an interesting discussion. If anyone's been listening to the show for a while, there was kind of a monologue I did at the beginning of an episode where I said that, we weren't going to spend a lot of time doing takedowns of the ridiculous things that politicians say because it's cheap and it's easy and it kind of takes away from a substantive discussion to just sitting around and laugh at how stupid they are and, all the stupid things that they say. So we're actually going to do that this episode. Super Tuesday is coming up next week. We're going to have our nominees very soon, and the election matters. I know it's a cliche, but elections matter, especially for people who have seen benefits from the super fragile and very small progress that we've made in the last 8 years when it comes to racial equality and LGBT equality and income inequality and healthcare and all these kinds of things. So I wanted to kind of paint the picture of what this looks like for us. And to help do that, we've invited a very special guest, Mr. Ishmael Brown of the Angry Black Rant podcast. I'll get it right, damn it. Angry Black Rant podcast. Ishmael, welcome, sir.
What up? Thanks for having me.
So,
Can I say something before we get started?
Yeah, please do.
Way to make me feel insulted. You're basically like, look, I promise I'm not going to do lowbrow, low-hanging fruit episode. But since we decided to do that, so we got a not nuanced person ever who can just help us make fun of these jerks. Okay, I feel good. Okay.
Well, and in fairness, we're not just going to be making fun. There will be a healthy dose of that, I promise.
That's all I'm going to be.
But we're gonna have a real talk too. I promise. So Ishmael, before we jump in, talk for a minute about your podcast. Tell me what you do.
So my podcast is basically, I talk about everything, from, race, religion, current events, politics, things like that. Whatever kind of comes across my view, whatever I stumble on that I feel like is worth talking about or something that gets me kind of excited and wanting to talk about it. I basically say it's in short, it's basically you're going to see through the eyes of an angry black atheist, which is what I am. So it's covering a lot of things. And I try to make it fun and funny as I go on my rants and have nuanced conversations about things.
There's also to give you a kind of idea of what the show is like, there's a regular segment on the show that we can't even say the title of on this show.
Well, here, let's do this. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and call it. I'll go ahead and put the explicit tag on because that's the kind of language I feel like using about the people that we're going to be talking about on the show. So okay. Go ahead and name it. Let's just go ahead and throw it out there.
Do it.
Okay, but just so everyone knows, it's you are the one that wants to swear. It's not that I'm on here. You're like, okay, I don't think this guy can swear. See, I'm all insensitive. You know I'm sensitive, Callie.
How many times have I been on iFriends with you and you're like, oh yeah, PG-13, and then like it's like 6 times. Like, come on.
Shut up.
Like, let's just be real. Let's just be real.
The segment is the fuck boy of the week. So yeah, I have a fuckboy of the week segment, and it's just like some guy who's an asshole, some guy who's a bigot, some guy who is just someone who came across the radar who deserves the award for the fuckboy. And yeah, so pretty much, I actually just found one before you hit me up, and I'll probably use him. I just have him as a candidate now. He is this old white guy who's harassing this black waitress, and he tells her, "I want to take you where I hung your grandfather."
Jesus.
So, yeah, I know. I know. So I have that story on Angry Black Red on Facebook if anyone wants to check it out. But yeah, so I'm like, yeah, he's definitely a candidate. So that's the type of stuff, sometimes it's politicians, sometimes it's, just somebody who really gets under your skin where you really just want to go at him for like 5 minutes, essentially.
Fair enough. Well, okay, so let's jump into talking about the election here. This I have not been super politically active and politically aware for a super, super long time. So I'm not like super qualified to talk about things in the context of history, but I don't ever remember there being this much craziness on the Democratic side when it comes to when it comes to supporting a candidate. What I have seen is most people saying that, well, this is my candidate, this is who I want to win, but I'm going to support the nominee because I don't want a Republican to win. And the newish phenomenon that we're seeing in this election is people saying, I want Bernie Sanders to win, and if not, I'm going to write him in, I'm going to stay home, or I'm going to vote for Donald Trump because fuck you.
Yeah, I'm seeing that sort of thing everywhere.
And
yeah.
I'm hoping that that's just like a niche in my friend group and that there aren't that many people. There aren't enough people to actually fuck us over like that. So before we jump in, Ari and Ishmael, are you both comfortable declaring who you support, or are you decided?
Yeah, yes. I think most people are usually decided. People who say I'm not sure, it's like, come on, stop. What do you need? Another crappy commercial where they say what you want to hear for you to be like, oh yes, that's my person. That's the person I'm going to vote for. Yeah, I'm decided.
Because he's in America.
So who is it, Ishmael? Who is it for you?
Louis Farrakhan. Nah.
Nicely done.
Bernie. Hey, I heard Farrakhan's going to be, he offered security to Beyonce, so I gotta I hate that bastard. Anyway, Bernie.
And Ari?
I'm a 24-year-old liberal, so Bernie.
I love that.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, that's not why I'm voting for him, but you know what they say about Bernie supporters. They're all college students and, under 25.
Don't guys. Bernie bros.
Oh, yeah,
that's true.
Bernie bros.
That really was insulting, man. But, whatever you can to try and get. It's like they said, any woman who doesn't vote for Hillary, there's a cold. What is it? There's a cold place in hell for them. A special
place in hell for women who don't support other women.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Yeah, I was mixing up the whole, it'll be a cold day in hell, blah, blah, blah. I was mixing up two different insulting things related to hell. Yeah. It was. And who was that? Was that a.
I don't remember her name.
Fucking
but
Gloria
it was a
Steinem.
Prominent kind of like
no, it wasn't Gloria Steinem.
Feminist.
Gloria Steinem was the one who was like
Gloria Steinem. Yeah,
no. Gloria Steinem was the one who said who said that women are voting for Bernie because women just want to do what the boys do. It was former Secretary of State. Hang on, I gotta find it.
Madeleine Albright.
Yes, that's who it was.
Yes. I'm a fan of her. I mean, I get what she's trying to do. She's just going overboard. And you know who else went overboard? Did you see when John Lewis endorsed Hillary and he tried to dismiss Bernie's civil rights activism by saying I never met him, and then in the same breath he goes, but I met Hillary Clinton and I met President Clinton, but then he clears it up and says, well, I didn't mean they were in the civil rights movement. Then why'd you say that? It was clear you were clearly trying to convey.
Cue all of those pictures of John Lewis with Bernie Sanders and all those different rallies and everything too. So just yeah.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I don't get why people who endorse Clinton seem to go so far. And like I said, I think they are political like powerhouses, right? And not only that, they're very petty. They are willing to make you pay for not endorsing them, or at least this is a lot of the things I read. You don't want to go against the Clintons as a Democrat because they will take it personally. But because the whole thing with Madeleine Albright, and maybe it's just, I don't know. I don't know why John Lewis went that route. I don't know why he tried to dismiss him. And the fact, because I heard a lot of people who were involved in the civil rights movement called him up and was like, who do you think you are? We get it. You're a civil rights hero. But how fucking condescending to just be like, well, I didn't see him. And then to just throw the Clintons in there who have such a problematic history with African Americans was not the right thing to do.
Right.
But anyway.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, and in fairness, I don't want to act like Hillary Clinton is like any more evil than like any other, like, I mean, she's a status quo Democrat, right? Like the way that she is acting is not beyond the pale for a politician in general, right? Like it's not like her campaign is some unique, like, she didn't invent taking money from big banks and then helping big banks. You know what I mean? Like, she didn't invent that process. She definitely deserves criticism for taking part in it. You know what I mean? But to act like she's the fucking Antichrist because of it, I think it's ridiculous.
That doesn't even bother me. I mean, it's just her policies in the what the Clintons, and I get there was a necessity for the Clintons in the 90s. I guess I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, where the Democratic Party, they were saying we're never going to get elected again because we were too liberal and the country was not liberal. So Q Clinton, who to me nothing about him felt liberal. I mean, he went on Arsenio Hall and played the sax, so I guess that means he likes the coloreds or whatever. He was like anti-welfare and made it seem like it was like black people and welfare queens, and then he did the whole DOMA thing. But someone pointed out, they said at the time DOMA was actually no, not DOMA. Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Yeah, there was DOMA too.
They said that it is progressive for the time, so maybe it is. But I just feel like we've been having to deal with a lot of what Clinton created in his presidency, trying to get rid of. The whole RFRA, the whole Hobby Lobby, that's from a Clinton decision. That whole RFRA thing was Clinton. And then because I forget, it had to do with Native Americans and smoking peyote.
What it was is there was a Native American gentleman wanted to smoke peyote as part of his religious rituals. And what was funny was at the time, we came down, the United States Supreme Court came down on the side of no, you don't get a religious exemption. And then Congress turned around and said, you know what, that's not really fair. So let's pass the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. So it was actually originally intended to protect minority religious belief, which is pretty ironic.
Which is why Scalia didn't want any part of it. Did you see the two, like one, his dissent in, or it wasn't a dissent because it didn't get passed, but he basically said the exact opposite of when it was brought back up with Hobby Lobby.
Well, yeah, of course.
Because he's Catholic, and because it's, that's why when they say people try to say he's a traditionalist, and he is a religious person.
He's a partisan
who tried to make sodomy illegal. He tried to promote saying, no, sodomy should be illegal countrywide. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Federally illegal. So when people try to argue that, I'm just like, whatever. He was just a bigot. That's all.
Yeah. And I want to say real quick, it's not, and I don't think it's entirely unfair to bring up, Bill Clinton's presidency when we're talking about Hillary, because she was a very active and involved first lady. You know what I mean? I mean, fair enough. She wasn't the one in elected office, and she wasn't the one who had the final say in the decisions. But I think it's pretty fair to say, given how active she was and how active she is in politics since, that I'm sure that, she had a lot of sway in those decisions. And
and she has interview after interview supporting those things. Because, no, I don't think anything Clinton did I should put on Hillary. But if I have evidence of her going out, supporting it, going out her way, supporting it more than Michelle Obama supports, like, I don't know, things her husband does that she's not she's not out on the stump only on certain things, So I would never blame if Michelle's not a politician, but you know what I mean? I'm not going to blame her just for things her husband does because that's a little insulting. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I will blame her for the words she says.
Oh,
and
100%.
That's what I've been looking at. The things she has said is what that's why I'm judging her. Not just because she happens to be married to Bill Clinton.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. And I actually, that's something I kind of changed my mind on. I mean, I had somebody arguing with me that was, they were totally like a Bernie or bust kind of person. And, they were talking about Bill Clinton and Bill Clinton. And I'm like, dude, where is Hillary in all of this? Like, you can't use Bill Clinton's presidency to argue against Hillary Clinton's presidency. You know what I mean? And like, and I went back.
So they're basically the same person.
Well, right.
Oh, and she is his wife.
Right.
Let's talk about that. Because if it was the other way around, I'm sure he could dismiss it. What do you want me to do?
100%.
Like go against my wife, but because it's a woman, they just say, "Oh well, see, her husband wanted it, so clearly she must too."
Absolutely, but then you go back and you find, like when she was, even if she wasn't part of the decision making process, she definitely like went along with it and agreed with, certain things. So it's like, okay, like at that point, I guess a lot of that's fair. So let's talk about for a second this idea of, if the candidate we like doesn't get elected, then fuck everything. So I want to give, and maybe saying that I want to give a fair hearing to that point of view is a little hypocritical because I didn't invite anyone on the show who has that point of view, because I didn't feel like getting really, really frustrated and angry.
Because you don't know any stupid people. Wait, I'm sorry. I'm judging them too harshly. Sorry.
I'm Facebook acquaintances with some.
But actually, I will tell you, I'm actually probably more on that side than any. So you can actually use me. Okay. I will never vote for Trump, but I'm definitely one that I will not. But I didn't vote for Obama in 2012.
Yeah.
I mean, a part of it is because I'm in California and my vote is meaningless because the way our system works. Right. So I had no need to vote. Maybe if I was in some state where it's purple and it can go either or. But honestly, I don't think I would and we can talk about that. There was a lot of things that bothered me about Obama's presidency, the first term that made me say, I'm not going to vote for him. Even though I want him to win, but just like on principle, I think I probably shouldn't vote for him.
Well, right. And so the idea is that you're wasting your vote if you're not voting for the person you actually want to be president, right? Mm-hmm. And I have sympathy for that. Like, I promise I have sympathy for that. And the idea is that, Bernie is so far to the left of the establishment. I think anyone who looks at Bernie, even people who don't like him, can agree that he is most certainly not an establishment candidate, right? Like, I think we can all agree on that. And basically what they want to do is they want to send a message to the Democratic Party that if the candidate, quote, of the people can't win, then the Democratic Party doesn't speak for us, and we're going to punish you by causing you to lose an election. So that way you'll listen to us next time. And if, we get the wrong president for 4 years in the interim, then so be it, because at least the politics will change after the fact and things will get better after the fact. Would you say that's a fair assessment of that point of view? I mean,
I kind of had that view when Bush got reelected. But it was after the fact where I said I was so angry and so baffled after going into the Iraq war. And I said, something, Ishmael, don't get mad. We deserve whatever we get from this because whoever, this is the process. So it kind of took a lot of my fire away because I was like, well, we deserve whoever we get. So it's like not to be cheesy and a comic book geek because I am. It's like with Batman, you're the hero we deserve, but not or you're the hero we need, but not the hero we deserve right now. And Bush just was like after 9/11 and the whole thing and going so I'm not a spiteful person. I would never vote for. Oh, I'm going to vote Republican then to show you guys because you didn't agree with me. No, I'm just going to say, okay, my guy didn't get picked. Will I feel comfortable voting for this person? And I just felt like, and I really think I have an easy out because I'm in California and my vote is meaningless. Because it probably would be different if I felt my vote mattered and I felt like I could rally people and try and get it's like when the Prop 8 thing came out. I'm in California. Prop 8 came. I started working like commercials that were like supporting Prop 8. I could easily say the same thing and be like, well, if you guys are going to vote for Prop 8, then we deserve it. And no, I'm like, no, Prop 8, we need to shoot this down because it's about bigotry. It's about homophobia. It's about all these things, But so probably I would look at it different if I felt my vote counted. But I just felt like Obama did a lot of things, and I'm sure people are listening like, why is this black guy not wanting to vote for Obama in 2012?
Because the black guy automatically has to like the black guy for president.
Of course, exactly. It's like, but no, I mean, it's just like, there was a lot of things, the indefinite detention of American citizens, the drones, the killing of Americans overseas without due process. Those were things that bothered me. And I said, and I always said to myself when Obama did things, and it's usually foreign policy, I said, if Bush did this, how would I feel? And that's all I had to do to say, I would be so angered by this.
Yeah.
He's killing Americans overseas, even though they're suspected terrorists. He killed the terrorist's son, who was like a 16-year-old kid. And I just said, I do not feel comfortable voting for him. But in a way, I knew my vote didn't count. I don't know if I was in a purple state. I'm trying to be honest. Like, I don't know if I would still, stand up for my values and say, well, I'm still not going to vote for him. I don't, but a part of me just becomes a cynic. And I'm like, well, then we deserve Mitt Romney then, and we'll just deal with that. So then whatever, so it's tough.
And Ari, what are your thoughts?
I've been going back and forth on this for a while. I see definitely legitimate points to both sides as far as if Bernie doesn't win the nomination, should I vote for Hillary? Should I vote for the Green Party? Should I not vote at all? Right now, I'm leaning more towards I am voting for Hillary for several reasons. The main argument against voting for Hillary among Bernie supporters has been that, the whole reason people are supporting Bernie is because he's anti-establishment. He wants to change the way the establishment works. And Hillary is the embodiment of the establishment on the Democratic side. Well, if I don't vote for Hillary and a Republican wins, they are also part of that whole moneyed establishment, but they are also extremely conservative and would do a whole lot more harm, I think, than Hillary would. So I think we're screwed either way in regards to, the issues of money in politics. But at least if Hillary gets into office, then I don't have to worry about her, trying to pass laws saying it's okay to stone people in the streets. The thing that gives me a little bit of pause is that I definitely see a huge value in voting your conscience as opposed to voting pragmatically. For example, I am pescatarian. I don't agree with factory farming, so I don't put any of my money towards beef, pork, chicken, anything like that. And I'm just one person who's doing that, so it doesn't make a huge impact on our society. But if more and more people start believing that they can have an impact and they start, taking away money from causes that they don't agree with, then we will start to see change in this country. And it's kind of the same way with politics. People are always complaining about the two-party system having way too much power, and like South Park, it's like choosing between a turd sandwich and a giant douche, and you pick the lesser of two evils. And people have been complaining for so long that we need more than two parties in this country. But then when it comes down to it, nobody's actually willing. Well, very few people are actually willing to vote for a third-party candidate because they know that no one else is voting for them, so there's no way that they're going to win. So I do see the value in trying to get people to move more towards this third-party mindset where they don't feel pressured to choose between the lesser of two evils. They feel that they can actually, vote for the candidate that will best represent their views. And if we don't start moving in that direction, we're never going to get in that direction. But I think in the end, at least right now, I'm especially because I live in Illinois, which is more of a purple state, and I desperately do not want a Republican in office. Right now, I'm feeling like I'm going to be voting for Hillary if Bernie doesn't get the nomination.
Yeah, I actually can't think that I found really much of anything to disagree with on what you said there. I think that's
I'm perfect.
I think that's all. I think that's all pretty fair. Before I came out, and before when I was at least living my life disguised as middle class white guy that didn't really have a stake in a whole lot of this kind of thing. I very much had the vote your conscience kind of thing. Like, I very seriously considered voting for Gary Johnson in an election, like that kind of stuff, because it's like, yeah, libertarian, like freedom, keep the government out of our lives, blah, 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 God.
I'm sorry, do open my mouth a little bit. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hey, I bet you used to have really shitty views too.
Oh yeah, I was Christian, of course.
Oh well, there you go.
Not me. I was born perfect.
Oh God, that's.
Yeah. So you were born Mary Poppins. Good for you. Lied to children.
God.
Sugar is good for you.
Helps
the medicine go down. Diabetes come up.
God, I hate both of you so much right now. Oh man. So yeah. So I think that at least lays out that position fairly well, as far as why people feel the way that they do. And I don't want to sound like I'm unsympathetic to that position, because I really am, because the status quo is okay for someone like me. Like, the status quo isn't going to continually do me harm, because the status quo isn't really doing me harm now. For people, people who are living in poverty, people who are far less privileged than I am, that's not the case, But, in my mind, it's like, okay, so if the choice really comes down to sharp and rapid backward progress and status quo, you'd have to give me a really damn good argument to choose sharp backward momentum over the status quo, especially for a period of 4 or 8 years. Like, how much damage can be done in that time by rolling these things back? And I mean, that's not to say that I don't acknowledge the damage that will be done by the status quo, because the status quo does damage people and it is hurtful. But I'm not really ashamed to say that, like, I'm kind of ready to decide this question on fear. And
I mean, there's not really a lot wrong with that in my view, anyway. It's a legitimate fear.
Yeah, and I think fear means it can be translated to ideology, because that's what's really terrifying when you come across someone who has a completely different ideology that will change the face of America. So, and I've actually started taking the presidential election more serious when I learned it's about the Supreme Court justice. We can pretend like, oh, politics is politics and not much is going to change. That in itself, nothing else, even if nothing else changed, if you get to elect a justice, and I felt like this presidency showed me that, because we saw Hobby Lobby and we saw things that were so, and we see how there's no atheists on the Supreme Court. It's all religious people, and we just pray that they're liberal religious people who pray before a town hall meeting, and then even further so, like with the whole Hobby Lobby thing. So that in itself, I think, so when I was talking about not voting for Obama, I guess I wasn't taking that into account. But as far as Hillary, because I kind of have been scapegoating your whole premise, because I went back to Obama in 2012 and why too? Because I don't know. I kind of felt like Obama was going to win anyway. And like I said, I'm in a state where my vote honestly doesn't count. It's going liberal. It's not going to ever go Republican. So
yeah. See, well, and I live in Ohio.
I would vote for Hillary. Yeah. I would vote for Hillary hands down. I have to vote for Hillary. Period. And I wouldn't do so shamefully. I rather Hillary than any of the people on the other side. So yeah. So I guess in a way, I'm not the best representative of those that say, "Oh, I'm so angry, I'm going to vote for Trump," or "I'm not going to." No, because if I was in a meaningful state, I would vote for Hillary. I really would.
Well, I think the point here is to realize that we're all reasonable enough people to understand where those folks are coming from at the very least. Even if we disagree and we think that what they're doing could be really harmful and wrong, like we can at least like, okay, like I see where you're coming from. And like, I feel, I feel that same, disillusionment with the political system and that kind of stuff. Like I get all of that. And it is, it's a self-perpetuating thing, right? Like every election is the most important election ever. And like, we can't do that in this election because this election is so important. I'm sympathetic to how much of a, broken record that starts to feel like, because it's like, if we keep doing that over and over again, literally nothing ever changes. But at the same time, like, unless we have an actual political revolution, our entire political system is set up for incremental change in the first place. That's literally what our system is designed for. We can argue whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. And I think it's probably a little bit of both, but like, unless we can get somebody to do a page one rewrite of the Constitution, that's the way shit works. So what I would like to propose as a sort of counterpoint to the Bernie or bust argument. And I would like to say I am 100% firmly, because I don't think I said it when I asked you two what your candidate choices were. I am 100% going to vote for Bernie in Ohio's primary. I'm probably not going to get out and knock doors because I've got lots of activism stuff going on, but I'm 100% a Bernie fan. I will also 100% vote for Hillary if Bernie doesn't win. And so we've spent kind of the first half of the show talking about this, this rift in the Democratic Party, and where that argument's coming from. But what I would like to present is kind of what the stakes are if we end up with a Republican as president. Because it's not just, to me, it's not just run of the mill, like, oh, they have bad economic policies, that kind of stuff. It legit scares the shit out of me. And I don't mean in the hyperbole political way. I'm literally scared for my future as a human being. Not like trying to like exaggerate or be funny. Like it legit scares me for the quality of my life and for the quality of lives of other trans people and people of color and poor people and basically anyone who's any part of any sort of marginalized identity. One thing I will say that I think is hilarious is I was researching all of this because I wanted to see, obviously we can probably make a blanket statement and say that the Republicans are all assholes when it comes to LGBT issues. But I would love to kind of drill down like the top three. So, right now we're basically down to Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and Donald Trump, right? Which got a
dream team.
Yeah. Like, first of all, what a time to be alive, right? So when I was looking at this,
I love that phrase. Oh,
yeah.
I love that phrase.
So the most hilarious part of this whole thing, the person with the most reasonable views on the LGBT community is Donald fucking Trump.
Yeah.
So first of all, he personally.
Well, it depends on the day. He keeps, one
Well,
interview
that's
he
fair.
says, "Oh yeah, I would absolutely repeal same-sex marriage." And the other interview he says, "Oh, same-sex marriage is fine. I'm not going to do anything about it." So,
Well, right, and that's
what
fair.
the fuck he actually thinks.
That's fair. That's fair.
Well, you can look at who he supports, and I honestly think he is more. He's closer to Obama than to like Ted Cruz. To be honest, obviously he's not Obama. But he's like, first of all, his whole thing about building the wall and whole thing about Hispanics, someone who's in the food and service industry and things like that, he benefits from that. I don't know how much he agrees with, but he's pro Planned Parenthood. I just think he's a rich asshole, but I don't think he's a religious rich asshole. And it's so interesting that take out religion and I can deal with a guy like him. Even though he said a lot of racist things, I'm not sure if that's not just for politics. Because he's so pro-Hillary. He has been for years. I honestly do not. First, listen, I don't want him to be president ever because there's other issues too. But I don't think he's as bad as the ultra religious guys who are like, the Bible said this and it's an abomination. Mm-hmm. I've never seen him so actively against the LGBTQ community. I mean, but I don't know. I could be wrong. But do we know anything other than him just trying to get elected right now? And not to say that that's not just as bad. Because if you feel comfortable being able to say that just to get elected, fuck you. You know what I mean? But
right.
But if he just started saying racist shit, I can say, okay, he's like black people his whole life, but I'm not just going to ignore it.
Yeah, that's true. I'm with you there. I was watching clips of him talking about gay marriage. So and I got one because I was just thinking like I was ready for him.
I didn't know about that. Go ahead, tell me, because I may have missed that when he talked about gay marriage.
Okay, here we go.
The Republican presidential candidate has criticized the Supreme Court ruling on gay marriage.
Right.
You said the court overreached, and you kind of let it go at that, and I think you were sending a message of tolerance.
Well, it could be tolerance. It could be also like, we have a lot of problems in this country, and we have to get back to work. I would have preferred states, making the decision, and I let that be known. But they made the decision, and, most of the candidates, I think, have said they did make the decision. A couple are out there very firmly that we're going to fight it, we're going to this and that. I would have preferred, certainly, if it were made by the states, the decision. I thought maybe that's what would have happened. You never knew. It was like a 50-50 call.
But you're not going to spend a lot of time on this issue.
Look, it's an issue that's been determined by the Supreme Court. And frankly, I'm about jobs. I'm about making the country great. I would have liked to have seen the decision differently. And you have another decision, Obamacare, which is a disaster given to us by John Roberts, who was appointed by Bush, who was pushed by Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush is the one that pushed John Roberts into that position. And when I look at even the most militant on the whole gay rights decision, the most militant people are saying there's nothing you can do because they're talking about constitutional amendments, and then they go on to say that could never happen. So at a certain point, you have to be realistic about it.
So, like, obviously a wrong-headed position. I'm not trying to give him credit or anything, but, like, shockingly tame for this Republican field of candidates, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm surprised that he even admitted that it's pretty much a settled issue, because still amongst these people, people who are supposed to know how the Supreme Court works and how the government works, they keep talking about it like there's something they could do to change it. There's nothing you can do. The Supreme Court ruled on it. It's over. Please stop.
What I really enjoyed was the interview is talking about, so that sounds to me like a message of tolerance, and you hear Donald Trump going, I don't know.
He's not so good at that whole tolerance thing.
Oh my gosh. No, but it's so true. I mean, it's so bad how low the bar is that, like, he's just saying, I accept whatever they said. But to be honest, I think he doesn't care. I think he's a wealthy guy who grew up rich. I went to school. when I graduated from high school, I went to a boarding school, very wealthy people. And then I went to a college that is kind of like, they just funnel people from boarding schools. And they just aren't religious. They're not necessarily atheists. They're not atheists at all. But they remind me so much of Donald Trump. They don't get, there's racism still in them, and there's bigotry, but they're not friggin' bending over backwards to try and make biblical bullshit. Like, they're just like, okay, so gay marriage is now legal. Okay, whatever. I'm not saying they're champions of it. They are probably bigots on certain levels, but they're not like Rick Santorum. They're not Huckabee. They're not these people who are like dying a wool, like, it's the end of the world if I don't stop gay marriage. Those aren't things he's interested in. They're just not. So I always said the Republican who I was afraid of was Jeb Bush, because he's like Trump, sorta, but then he has that religious things and the whole Terry Schiavo thing, but he actually, I felt, could get more independent votes. Trump can't get independent votes, but at the same time, he's not a religious, like, fanatic. I don't think he's religious at all. I think he's just a wealthy guy who never thought about God or anything and lived his life, and it's been a great life. He's marrying women. He's divorced them. He's talking about, if I was young, I would sleep with my daughter kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing biblical about it. Well, maybe the sleep with the daughter is biblical. That's a little Sodom and Gomorrah thing going on right there. Yeah. But other than that, Trump, I always said, worst case scenario, I rather Trump than anyone else, even though I know there's going to be a ton of problems. But he's not a social Republican. He's not all about putting the Bible back in schools and shaming LGBTQ people. And you know what I mean? Like, he has his issues, and he's an idiot, and he's a rich son of a bitch that is just dismissive of a lot of people. But he's not Santorum or Huckabee.
No,
or Ted Cruz.
That's true. I feel like, people who live in poverty have it a whole lot worse under him, I think.
Yes.
I mean, and obviously we're measuring like who's the least bad here. So like, it's important to note that we're not like talking about in terms of like, well, then, that would be okay. Like, we're talking about who's the least of a shitbag. So,
yeah.
And I think you're right.
Joker, Lex Luthor, Doctor Doom, like, you know what I mean?
Right,
like,
exactly.
I'm not endorsing any of them. I'm just saying who's going to kill the less people.
Right, yeah.
In that comic book series.
Yeah, I think Trump is I think he's a cultural Christian at the most. Like, somebody who just kind of grew up in the culture, so like it just kind of makes sense to identify that way, even though it's something you never really seem to put a lot of thought in. Like, I saw a picture of him walking around a rally, like making sure he had his Bible in front of him, and I was like, look, I'm not a photographer, I'm not a marketer or anything like that, but I can look at that and say, like, that is very obviously staged for the crowd's benefit.
Of course.
He's not carrying a Bible around because he's like, oh, you know what? I might need to quote this scripture while I'm on stage. Like, no, stop it.
2 Corinthians. Wasn't that what he did?
Yes, 2 Corinthians. Oh, God.
He's just a wealthy guy. That's all. He is so not religious. I honestly think religion has nothing to do with his life. And I don't mean to say, like, okay, so that makes him closer to us, because his religion is money. He probably would die over money. Like, he would die over making a deal.
He would make other people die.
Some type of religious bull. But I'm just saying, religion isn't the thing we got to worry about with him. We got other stuff we have to worry about with him, but religion isn't one of those things. I honestly think he could give a crap about religion. He's totally removed from that.
Yeah, I agree. So speaking of religion, Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio have both kind of ramped up the whole religious thing because they're campaigning in southern states now, and so I was looking for some good stuff from Marco Rubio, and I found this. This one's kind of a gem. So check this out.
Can't wait.
On same-sex marriage, after the Supreme Court rule, obviously you were against the decision, but I believe, and I might be paraphrasing, but you pretty much considered it, it's settled law, or I don't know if those were exactly your words, but it was settled law in your mind. There are a lot of folks that believe they want to fight this, that they don't think that it's settled law, and they believe that the Supreme Court has erred in this, just like Dred Scott and some other
So it is current law.
Before.
It is not settled law. No law is settled. Roe v. Wade is current law, but it doesn't mean that we don't continue to aspire to fix it because we think it's wrong. And in the interim, until we can get a Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade, we do everything possible within the constraints that it's placed upon us to confront it and certainly limit the number of abortions and save as many lives as possible. I think that the broader question is, what is our role in terms of confronting it? And again, if you look at biblical lessons, the first thing is we are clearly called in the Bible to adhere to our civil authorities. But that conflicts with also a requirement to adhere to God's rules. Right. And so when those two come in conflict, God's rules always win. In essence, if we are ever ordered by a government authority to personally violate and sin.
So there it is. God's laws win.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah, I'm just like... Okay.
Did you guys see the ad he put out probably about a month ago where it was just like him sitting in a chair talking about how much he loves the Bible and how he's basically a Christian before an American?
Yes.
That scared me a lot.
That is like, Sharia law? Is that what you're saying?
Right.
You want to live in the biblical law. They don't realize how similar they are to Muslims. The evil... tyrannical Muslims that they have as the big boogeyman. That's you guys.
Exactly. And it's not even the politicians. A lot of the just the regular Republican voters feel that way. Like, my mom is a diehard Republican, and one time she was talking about, the terrible Muslims, and they want everyone to be Muslim. Isn't that terrible? And I was like, well, you're a Christian. Don't you want everyone to be Christian? And she was like, well, it's not the same thing. Really, Mom? Is it not the same thing?
Well, of course it's not the same when you have the right God. I mean, duh.
Of course. My God is the real one. They have the fake one.
She said, my God has lighter complexion than their God.
That's what it is.
We'll just leave it there. Okay?
Even though they both came from the Middle East. So
my God doesn't have bad credit, okay? We'll just leave it there. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying the credit on a Christian God, you can get a house.
Right, that's fair. Made of gold, with streets of gold, apparently.
My God doesn't
Jesus
know what
was a
Section
moocher,
8
man.
is, okay?
Jesus never paid off.
Section 8.
All right, so here's another good Rubio quote that I'm sure you'll love.
We are at the water's edge of the argument that mainstream Christian teaching is hate speech. Because today we've reached a point in our society where if you do not support same-sex marriage, you are labeled a homophobe and a hater. So what's the next step after that? After they've done going after individuals, the next step is to argue that the teachings of mainstream Christianity, the Catechism of the Catholic Church, is hate speech. And that's a real and present danger.
So Christianity should be exempt from being called hate speech, even if it may actually be, right?
Apparently.
I always love how it's been adopted, and Sarah Palin was one of the first people. Hater is now mainstream. I'm black, and hater was so hip hop.
Right.
Now all of a sudden, Sarah Palin says hater. Politicians say, I'm like, wait, haters? Anyway, it's so, I don't know. I just find that so funny. They're like, oh, and now you're a bigot or a hater. Wait, it's a bigot or a hater? I'd rather be a hater than, there's so many things in between those two phrases. It's like, hey, like a bigot or a hater. I'm a hater because I hate like certain music. I hate certain, I don't know. I just find that funny that like right-wing people are using hater as if it's like calling you a racist. Anyway, I just find it so weird that that's now a thing where politicians use hater as if it's this like insulting thing that like stops conversations. And I'm like, I've been called a hater since like high school.
They're
Because I
drinking
hated
that
certain types of hip hop, like
drinking that
now
haterade.
it's a slur. Anyways,
So here's and what's funny about this too is so he makes the claim that we're talking about mainstream Christian teaching, right? So he's very much trying to paint his views here as the norm. Okay,
yeah,
and
you're right.
So we can argue over what the Bible actually does and doesn't say about Christianity. But that's not the argument that he's making here. What the argument that he's making very specifically is that according to mainstream Christian teaching, that homosexuality is wrong, that gay marriage shouldn't be legal. So here are some interesting numbers.
Whoa, hang on. We're going to get facted over here.
Yeah, I'm about to drop some knowledge on.
Okay,
drop a big old steamy load of truthiness.
Yeah, I'm going to take a nap and wake me up when
So, as of 2014, a study made by Pew Research, 70% of Catholics say homosexuality should be accepted by society, 66% of mainline Protestants, 62% of Orthodox Christians, 54% of all Christians, 51% of historically black Protestants, 36% evangelical Protestants, 36% Mormon, and 16% Jehovah's Witnesses. So Jehovah's Witnesses are towing the line for being the biggest assholes in the whole Judeo-Christian. Yeah.
Yeah. My granny was Jehovah's Witness who raised me, and she was like, it's funny because she was like out of the norm because she's like, yeah, I know we don't celebrate birthdays and stuff like that, but she was totally going against her bullshit. So I'm sure they're on their way out. I think they're just so every friggin' stupid religious belief is on their way to being more progressive. So I like that. Even though they're bringing up the rear, they're going to be falling in line in a couple years too.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's funny that you make the claim that your views are the mainstream, and it's like, well, not actually.
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
Well, I'm sure it's mainstream to him because he only hangs around with people who share his beliefs for the most part, so he thinks that's how everyone believes.
Well, I think it probably has more to do with the fact that, you know, his Christianity is the right Christianity. And that's
true.
Yeah.
It always is. I always say, is it troubling to you that you're closer in agreement to the Klan than you are to mainstream Christianity? I mean, because I don't even need to bring up atheism. You just bring that up, and they get all uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, and it's like, no, I just need to let you know the Klan, those who hung people, they lynched them. You're closer to them than mainstream people today. And then they just say, usually Pentecostal, because I grew up in a Pentecostal home, so they always have to go to, well, it's a sinful world. And like, they just talk about how worthless we are as humans and how we deserve friggin' the fire of, it's such a self-hated type of religion, Pentecostalism. It's just all about like, no, I deserve to burn in, I deserve to burn in a lake of fire. My children deserve to burn in a lake of fire. But we're just lucky enough to believe in Christ. So you can't even argue with some Pentecostals, man. They're just untouchable because they're all about humans are disgusting. We deserve to be tortured. And if you create that type of ideology, you can't touch that. I mean, what could you say against that? Because they're literally saying, no, me too. I am worth shit. I deserve for my Lord and Savior to burn me and torture me forever. So then you're like, I don't know what to say. I just think gay marriage should be legal.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
You have no other way to go. You're like, well, that sounds kind of disgusting, but I think gay people should get married. I don't know about you. And they're just like,
No. Gay people getting married is disgusting. God torturing people forever, that's just how it is.
Exactly. That is love.
I'm glad you straightened that out for us, Ari. I'm glad you straightened that out.
Daily, it's love. God loves us.
All right. So,
okay. Don't cut me off. Get it. You're just totally
rude.
So,
because I'm black, obviously, but we won't even talk about that.
It's more because you're my internet husband.
Whoa.
I know. I totally called her Hillary Clinton. Deal with it, sucker.
God.
And yes, I am your internet husband. I heard that. And I take that. I accept that.
That's why I'm nagging you. It's not because you're black. It's because you're my internet husband.
That's true.
Can I be your internet pet puppy?
No, you can be the internet. No, I don't need that. But I do need a side chick.
Well,
so,
I'll be Callie's. I'll be Callie's pet puppy, and since you're married to Callie, then I'm also your puppy.
Man, this took a real weird turn.
Black married. That just means like I haven't. I lived with you for about 2 years. That doesn't mean we're actually. We are poor people married.
Right,
it's
exactly.
Meaningless.
So of course, after talking about Trump and Rubio, of course, we come to Ted Cruz, which, like, people keep talking about how ridiculous Donald Trump is, and I don't think Rubio and Cruz ever got or will get enough credit for being just as outrageous. So the first clip that I'm going to play might be one that's kind of familiar, and this is not Ted Cruz actually saying this stuff. So I think, in fairness, this may not exactly represent the views of Ted Cruz, but this was an event that he attended enthusiastically and, very enthusiastically embraced the guy who was about to say the absolutely outrageous shit that you're about to hear. So
I feel like I know exactly what this is. Let's see if I'm right. Okay,
Let's watch.
Repent, America. Repent. America, repent of your rebellion against God. America, repent of stumbling the little ones. America, repent of Harry Potter. America, repent of How to Train Your Dragon. America, repent that Dumbledore emerged as a homosexual mentor for Harry Potter. That Hiccup's mentor in How to Train Your Dragon emerged as a homosexual himself, in order that history might repeat itself one more time, in order that little 6 and 7, 8-year-olds might stumble. there are parents, and this is not a funny thing, there are families and we're talking Christian families, pastors' families, elders' families, good godly churches. Their sons are rebelling, hanging out with homosexuals and getting married, and the parents are invited. What would you do if that was the case? Here's what I would do.
Okay, so for people listening, if you're doing something else while you're listening to this episode, I invite your undivided attention to the next few sentences.
Sackcloth and ashes at the entrance to the church, and I'd sit in cow manure, and I'd spread it all over my body. That's what I would do. And I'm not kidding. I'm not laughing. I'm grieving. I'm mourning. I'm pointing out the problem.
So,
first of all, speaking of Harry Potter, 50 points to Ravenclaw. I got it.
Nice.
I knew it was going to be the sackcloth and smearing poop on yourself guy.
Like, I mean, so.
And you didn't even include the best part where he says, "This is not a gay time."
Oh, God. Yeah, I totally missed that. Fail on my part.
Way to call her out, though.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate the call out. That's good. Yeah. But seriously, like, so.
Like, if anyone was impressed with what you just did, I'm going to say how it could have been better.
Well, that's what a good co-host does. I appreciate it.
Really? I thought co-hosts just got kicked in the teeth when you were bored. I'm sorry. I need to rethink my co-host.
Maybe it's good that maybe it's good that you stay solo on your show there, Ishmael.
Shut up.
So
God damn it. Anyway,
so I'm thinking if I'm a presidential candidate, like, I'm going to vet the events that I go to pretty closely, right? Like, if somebody is a little left of where I'm at or a little right of where I'm at, like, if I'm going to get in front of a big audience and I'm going to be able to make my case, like, cool. No worries with that. You don't always have to agree with everything everyone says if you're at the conference or you're, there to speak to a crowd. Like, you don't obviously don't have to agree with anyone, but, like, spreading poop on yourself at your child's gay marriage, like, there's some
issues, man.
There is no way they didn't have foreknowledge of just exactly what all of that nonsense was before they went in. And Ted Cruz and Mike Huckabee.
This is not the first time that this guy has been recorded as saying things like this. Not the covering yourself in shit part, but right. Similar things.
And Ted Cruz and Mike Huckabee were both there and, like, super stoked to be there.
Yeah, they love it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's amazing that the bar is so low for the Republican Party. That's why Donald Trump stands out. Well, honestly, I think he stands out within the Republican Party because he's just so, like, not mainstream, not the conservative party line. But outside of that, it's like maybe because he's just not so much of a religious bigot. I mean, he's racist. But I think religion behind racism is a terrifying thing. And
absolutely.
He just sounds like an idiot that's just like, he brings up like, he brings up things with, like, the Hispanic rapist Mexican stuff, which is just unconscionable. But I don't know, maybe is it because it doesn't have religion behind it, allows people to kind of write it off and pretend it's not that serious? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I just think his base are the kind of people who agree with that kind of thing.
You're right.
Or they are people who, they're the kind of people who say, like, well, I just like that he speaks his mind.
Yeah.
Which, like...
He's just honest. He tells the truth. He's finally saying what we've been waiting for.
All kinds of horrible racist shit.
Go ahead, sorry. I'm sorry.
No, Ari just said, like, he's finally saying what, we've always wanted to say. And I said, yeah, all kinds of racist horse shit.
Exactly. We could never say it before when, the Republicans were trying to appear at least semi-humanoid.
Semi-humanoid. That's good. I like that.
they actually have this great. I don't even think it's a meme yet. It was a what do you call it? A tweet, and someone says like white people, and then like colon, which so white people colon. It has said Beyonce and Kendrick Lamar are racist, and then it said white people colon. Not Obama, sorry. It says Trump's just speaking the truth. You guys can't handle the truth.
Right.
So it's like the exact it's like one group of people you swear are racist because they're trying to bring up injustice. But when it comes to Trump, you're just like, no, he's just speaking the truth. Like, oh, so he's not racist? Like it's such a great double standard where if black people bring up black people being mistreated, that's racism. But Trump being racist, saying Mexicans are rapists, it's like, oh, he's just speaking the truth, and you guys just don't want to hear. I thought that was like the perfect meme because it's like, yeah, it's so true.
Oh yeah, 100%. So and here we actually have a quote from Ted Cruz, and this is good stuff.
We look at the jihad that is being waged right now in Indiana and Arkansas, going after people of faith who respect the biblical teaching that marriage is the union of one man and one woman.
The jihad. There's a jihad going on.
So, yeah, there's a jihad.
Wow. I love that.
Like, there's a holy war going on against Christianity.
Exactly.
And like, and here's the thing. Obviously, the language is ridiculous. There absolutely is a war on Christian privilege.
That's the real war.
And that's one that I'm 100% like ready to call out.
Who want to acknowledge the Constitution because we're not bringing up nothing new. It's just like, well, that kind of goes against the Constitution, but they make it seem like you guys are out to destroy the Constitution, to acknowledge that there should be no separation between church and state. And it's like, well, I think we're acknowledging that whole part of the Constitution.
Yeah. And I don't know. Like, and I hate to be like, I really don't like using like warfare language. Like, we're fighting a war against blah, blah, blah. We got to take up arms against the enemy. You know what I mean? Like, I hate using language like that because it's hyperbolic and it's meaningless, But like, I'll cop to fighting a fight against Christian privilege. You know what I mean? Like, I'm good with that because that's exactly the thing that has held me and others like me and lots of other marginalized people. Like, that's exactly what it comes down to. So like, I'll cop to a part of that, and I'll just let that be what it is. So I've got one last Ted Cruz clip here. And so when I said we're going to have lots of fun and make fun of these guys throughout the episode, and then I'll probably end the episode yelling and crying. This is the yelling and crying part because,
oh no.
So here,
Ari, I'm going to allow you to respond.
So in all seriousness, like getting like super serious for a second, like there is so much hate on the Republican side of the aisle. Now, like, I'm not going to pretend there's no hate. There's no, hate coming from the left wing, because there definitely is. Okay. And I'm also not going to pretend like, obviously, there are plenty of Republicans who are honest, hardworking people who feel like they're getting a raw deal. They want somebody who's going to help them out. And for some reason, they think the Republicans are the people to do that. And, they're not out there trying to take anything away from anybody. Like, they're just honest people trying to make livings and trying to live their lives just like the rest of us. Like, I want to lay that down first. Like, those people do exist, and I would say those are probably the majority of people who have conservative leaning views, right? The problem is those kinds of people aren't necessarily the ones that have the power. Those aren't the people who are speaking the loudest. And when you hear a person who's a serious contender for the president of the United States say the things that you're about to hear Ted Cruz say, this kind of thing is exactly the reason why I absolutely am voting for Hillary if Bernie loses. Because it hits home for me, and it isn't hard for me to see these exact dismissive, hateful, bigoted attitudes being directed at other minority groups too. This one just happens to be a guy talking about people like me. So here we go.
I'll give you all a practical example of this, of why having unelected bureaucrats deciding education matters make no sense. You know, in the last couple of months, the federal education department is now trying to force a junior high to let a teenage boy shower with the teenage girls. Now that's just nuts. That's not, oh, that's kind of an interesting idea. Look, my 5-year-old daughter, Catherine, she knows the difference between boys and girls. And by the way, the school said, well, can we at least put up a curtain? No. You need to let that teenage boy in the shower. Now, if the local school board here issued a ruling, we're going to have the boys showering with the girls, you'd throw them out on their rear ends by the end of the day.
But they do allow them to have this one particular person use the teacher's lounge. He doesn't use the boys, he doesn't use the girls, but he uses the teachers.
Well, that, look, I don't know the facts of that, but I'll say that in inflicting him on the teachers is probably better than sticking him in the shower with the teenage girl. But my point is simple. We have a natural corrective in a democratic society. When someone comes up with a loopy idea like let's have teenage boys shower with teenage girls, you throw the school board out immediately and it gets corrected. But when it's decided by some unaccountable bureaucrat in the bowels of the Department of Education, they don't care what you and I think. They don't care about the values of the people here in Iowa. They just issue their edict and demand that everyone obey. And so when it comes to the 10th Amendment, I can tell you this. We have never seen a president who is a greater advocate for, who will fight harder for the 10th Amendment for devolving powers back to the states, back to the local governments, and back to the people than I will be.
Okay, so here's the thing. Anybody who's been listening to the show long enough will remember episode 4. God, that's almost 50 episodes ago now. We'll remember episode 4 where we talk about trans bathroom bills and how I was genuinely terrified and kind of broke down crying in the middle of the show because it kind of hit me that, you know, they're literally coming for us next because they realize that the gay marriage thing is over with. So like who are the new people for them to throw hate at and to use to fearmonger? And the answer is trans people. We saw it in Houston. We saw it in every place where a non-discrimination law has been struck down or a non-discrimination law has been not passed. It's not about sexual orientation. It's about trans people in bathrooms and the fact that everyone wants to paint us as if we are rapists and that treating us equally represents little girls getting raped in fucking public bathrooms. Right now in our country, there are over 200 bills being considered in state legislatures that are anti-LGBT in some way or another. Lots of them are about marriage, pastor protection bills, that kind of stuff. The overwhelming majority are anti-trans bills, and the majority of those deal with limiting access to sex-segregated spaces like locker rooms and bathrooms. There is a bill currently sitting on the South Dakota governor's desk that my understanding will become law tomorrow, as in Wednesday of this week. If he chooses not to do anything, the bill passes into law simply because it was passed by the state's House and Senate. The thing to understand about this bill is that it's not just discriminatory. It's not just hateful. This bill, under certain circumstances, gives school administrators the right to inspect the genitals of children before allowing them into sex-segregated spaces. We're talking about a state legislature legalizing and mandating fucking child molestation. This is why I can't say fuck everything, let it burn in this election. And this is why I'm going to be paying very close attention to my local elections, to my state elections, to my congressional elections, and to the presidential election. Bernie Sanders can't do anything if we don't elect a Congress that will support him, and if we don't elect state legislatures who will pass non-discrimination laws that literally saves people's lives. Ted Cruz has never had to deal with, to my knowledge, the suicide of a child. I've never dealt with it directly, thankfully. But kids in the transgender community commit suicide at ridiculously alarming rates. And bills like the one in South Dakota, bigoted, hateful attitudes like the one that Ted Cruz had in that video, literally end up killing people. Not a whole lot morally differently than if they had just shot him in the fucking head themselves. These things end up with people dead. Broader society, especially conservative Republicans, they don't value my life. They don't value Ishmael's life. They don't value Ari's life. Because we represent something that scares them. Something that's different. Something that takes away whatever their vision of the right human being, the perfect human being, we're threatening to that. And therefore our lives matter less. We're expendable. They can sacrifice us on the altar of moral outrage and political grandstanding, and they can point at us and say, oh, this man wants to go into the bathroom so he can rape your wife. The thing is, at the end of the day, I'd rather not have to be an activist. I love what I do. I think it's important. I've made amazing relationships with people. If I hadn't gotten into activism, I wouldn't know Ishmael or Ari. I wouldn't know, this amazing atheist podcasting community that I've become part of. I wouldn't have so many of the trans and queer friends that I have who are people who I consider members of my family. I would never have met my girlfriend if I hadn't been into activism. But at the end of the day, we're all working to put ourselves out of a job, right? I would love to come home from work and just play video games or just go spend time with my girlfriend. I do this stuff because I'm tired of hearing about people dying. I don't want to end up dead. I don't want my friends to end up dead. I don't want strangers and kids to end up dead. And that's the kind of stuff that happens when these laws pass. When you introduce an anti-discrimination bill, the numbers show violence increases. The backlash against the community, and especially in the wake of the marriage decision, has been swift, and it's been absolutely mind-blowing. So, I am not one to tell anyone what they have to do when it comes to these kinds of things, when it comes to who you vote for, or what you think in an election. What I want you to do is I want you to think very, very hard about all the people who will get hurt and all the people who will end up dead if this thing goes the wrong way. And I really, really want you to believe in your heart of hearts that what you're doing is the best for people like Ari, for people like Ishmael, and for people like me. I want you to believe that in your heart of hearts. And if in your conscience you think it's the right thing, considering all of this, then by all means do that. And I'll disagree with you, and we can have a conversation about it, and that's all fine. I don't want to shame anybody or yell at anybody or make you think you're a terrible person because you disagree with me on your election politics or anything like that. what I want you to do is I want you to be thinking of the people who really, really will have to suffer these consequences. And I'm only partially one of those people because I'm white, I'm relatively middle class, I make a halfway decent amount of money. This thing's not going to destroy my life. So I'm only partially affected. But I want you to think about the trans kids who don't have a place to sleep tonight, who don't know where their next meal is coming from. All of the families of the black men and women who have been killed by police and who are murdered on the streets, all the people who starve, people who are malnourished, all the people in our military whose lives get thrown away in wars that we shouldn't be involved in, that we're involved in for shitty reasons. I want you to seriously consider those lives and make sure that you're making the best decision in your mind for those people. And that's all I got on that. So, Ishmael, you want to tell us where we can find your podcast?
Jesus. Oh, you killed it, man. I have. Man. I loved what you just said. I just got to say, I loved everything you just said. And it couldn't have been said better, to be honest.
I agree with that.
Wow. I don't know. I'm kind of speechless right now. I'm so raw, so honest, so right that it got under my skin. I'm sitting here. I hate to say it, the only other type of emotion I felt this way was when I was like, when someone was preaching and I believed in that bullshit. And I loved it. But except what you're saying is true. It's anyway, okay. So would you totally put me on the spot. You want me to tell people how they can reach me?
Yeah, tell people how we can get a hold of you.
You are mean. You're brutal. To say what you just said? Okay. I don't know where they can reach me. Don't reach me. Reach Callie. She's
can't
really
reach Ishmael ever again because he'll be in bed crying.
Exactly. Oh my God. No, honestly, Callie, I loved it. I loved everything you said, man. Everything.
Thank you.
Yeah. Take that exhale. That exhale, you deserve it. Okay, so I feel so anyway, hey, party people in the house, if you want to reach me, I sound like such a dude, right? So anyway, getting back to the radio show, you can reach me at 1-800-douchebag.com.
Wait, what? 1-800-douchebag.com?
Yes.
It's a phone number and a website. The world's first phone number website hybrid.
I'm going to go on record recommending people don't put that into a web browser.
Yeah, I don't even know what that means. But anyway, don't get fired from work because you were listening to this. I usually listen to podcasts. But anyway, man, okay. I'll just say it anyway because you killed it. And now I'm just kind of. Anyway, Ishmael. Angry Black, you can just hit me up at Angry Black Rant, whether it's Facebook or Twitter. If you just put in Angry Black Rant, Rant meaning RANT, or if you want to go to the website, angryblackrant.com, and go to the Get in Touch tab, or if you want to email me directly, Ishmael at Angry Black Rant. But I just got to say, Callie, thanks for having me on Callie and Ari. I just appreciate the chance to be able to have the type of serious conversations we were having, and I just really appreciate you having me on. I really do, and I hope I can come back on again.
Yes, absolutely.
Fuck that shit.
Oh damn!
Well,
anyway.
Well, all right then. I am totally not in the mood to do the whole radio outro that I normally do. If this is your first time listening to the show, just Google the Gaytheist Manifesto. You'll find all the relevant stuff. Here's the deal. I always end the show with this monologue about how, I want you to reach out if you're, if you're struggling or if you're scared or whatever. And I just want to throw it out there that, like, I wrote that as I used to script basically the entire show, and I had that scripted as an outro because I thought it sounded cool. But, like, the other part is that I mean it, like 100% mean it. I know a lot of times, people listen to podcasts, they're hesitant to reach out because, they feel like, you've got a whole bunch of people talking to you, you're really busy, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. I'm super busy. I'm working like 20 hours of overtime this week at my regular job. On top of this, I don't care. Your life means more to me than, a couple extra hours of sleep. So, like, I hope that I'm not, that we here at the show, I hope that we're not the only place that someone has to reach out to. But if we are, I want you to know that we are that resource. Because the thing is, even if things go right in the election, if all of these anti-discrimination laws get passed, we know that laws don't fix culture. That it's a very complicated interplay of laws and culture, and that no matter what we do, there's going to be a huge backlash, and that all communities, all marginalized communities, people of color, queer people, trans people, people who live in poverty, people with disabilities, we're the ones who suffer that backlash the most because we're the ones most vulnerable to it. So I want you to know that when I say this at the end of every episode, I mean 100% of it. Sometimes it may sound really sincere, and sometimes it may sound like I'm reading from a script, but, like, it's important for me for people to know that I mean this thing when I say it. So the Gaytheist Manifesto at gmail.com is the show's email address. So if you need to reach out, please do. Don't suffer alone because you're afraid to burden someone. I'll gladly sacrifice that half hour of sleep or sacrifice that half hour or whatever, and I'm sure Ari will too, and I'm sure Ishmael will too. We're all people who care. So before we go, I want you to know that if you're lost, if you're hurting, if you're scared, if you feel like no one cares and no one understands, you need to know there's a community out here that loves you, cares for you, knows that you're capable of amazing things, and that you are worthy of love. If you're struggling, please do not be afraid to reach out. Until next time, friends, this is the Gaytheist Manifesto.